to American Education FM, everybody. I'm Dr. Sean Brooks. Today I have a great guest on. Susan Santa Cruz is a retired teacher in the Nelson County, Kentucky School District, and she's worked alongside Vanessa Hurst within their school district regarding the communistic takeover of their entire county at the hands of their superintendent, Wes Bradley. We discuss a variety of topics that are just not singular to their school district, but districts all over America and the world. We talk about the elimination of schools to consolidate them into smaller communistic work camps, as they're doing in Nelson County, the lack of curriculum that exists, the failure of leadership, low teacher morale, and the deteriorating mind of the American school teacher. The mask-wearing abuses also are covered, and how those who impose mask mandates are breaking the law and forcing a literal carcinogen on minors, and how mask noncompliance is going to be the only way forward, along, of course, with the elimination of school board members and the firing of superintendents once patriots take back control. Or, of course, you could walk away. You could completely walk away and watch the entire thing burn to the ground. That may be the only way forward, too. So with that said, give this a listen, share this wherever you can, and please understand that if you work in an environment such as these, you are being abused. And you are being conditioned to then abuse others and your own students. You're not alone. And it's time that you stand up and walk out of these environments.
My name is Susan Santa Cruz Rogers, and I retired in 2019 with 27 years of being an educator, and I was with the Nelson County school system for 20 years. For me, being an educator, and I guess from where I was in the last year of the school system with the Superintendent Bradley, I just saw a lot of changes that I wasn't comfortable with, several of my colleagues as well. So after I retired and kind of just sat back a little bit, this happened where he is proposing the merger of taking out middle school from our K through 8, which would make K through 5. He would take the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders out of a few of our small towns, and then close the school that I just retired from in 2019. He would close it. They would be bused to a larger city, Bardstown, Kentucky, which is closer to them, the board, and then Nelson County High School would then have middle school and high school, and then along with that would be Thomas Nelson High School to have middle schoolers along with the high schoolers. So I do not agree with that. And then several people in the community, parents, people I really didn't even know contacted me, and then of course my colleagues telling me, just different things that's gone on, and they don't agree with as well, but they're scared to talk. So I guess I've been kind of not put in the position, but I just felt, somebody had to talk, where they're just scared to, because they know either they're going to have repercussions from either being still at work, and there's been instances where people that are close to them, either by being a relative or just a friend, they've had things that happen to them, or were told you better keep your mouth shut, or tell this person to keep their mouth shut because something could happen to your job. And I don't think that's right.
Yeah, that's one of the I've spoken about it on the podcast numerous times, and I've written about it at length, that it is really one of the more pervasive problems that exists is the overwhelming business of workplace bullying.
Mm-hmm. It is. You are right.
And how it just that entire phenomenon of being so afraid to tell the truth. Yes. In a working environment, that right there should be all the proof that anybody needs that the environment is an unhealthy one.
Yes.
and that the adults working in that environment and allowing for that to be the case are the problem.
And I've tried to speak it, and I think, as far as I know, there's been others too, either by expressing it, maybe not to them, but you know how in a small area word gets around. There's no there's no doubt about it, especially with rural where we are. But just the fact that from last school year, and I did have an open records request for this, how many staff did leave from last year till I think the time that I received it was July 27th. So 47 classified, 48 certified, 3 principals, 1 assistant, and then 2 from central office. So about or at 100 staff members in the Nelson County school system left and either resigned, retired, or just got out. They couldn't take it anymore. That should be very telling right there when we're not as big as some of these school systems in Lexington area, Fayette County, or in Jefferson County, which is the 2 biggest educating areas for us in Kentucky. I could see that number, but not in an area of Nelson County, which has, I think with that, the open records request was 618 do or are employed with our school system, and we do have about a 4,700 amount of students. So that's a big number. And with what's going on with a lot of teachers leaving the field, that's going to hurt. And again, that should be something right there. 100 people no longer want to be in a school system. That's huge to a small area.
Has the number ever been that high before in the past?
No, sir. No, not from where I've been. No. Maybe, 15, 20-ish, 30, maybe. I don't even know if that much really, but 100.
I find it funny too that even teacher education departments in higher ed are not only having a hard time recruiting, but they don't seem to understand why.
Right.
I mean, they don't see the top-down, bottom-up problem that exists throughout the entire system. That it's all corporate-owned, it's corporate-controlled. If you're not using this computer or this piece of technology, then you're outcast. Right.
Well, I was shocked. I mean, from where either Vanessa, thank goodness for Vanessa Hurst, whether it was her or someone sent something to me, that's where the business end has so surprised me from where we are in education, because and that's what I said to the board, he or the superintendent, for what he's putting his money in, for branding, for PR, for tech, that when I got the vendor list, I was just so shocked at the amount of tech companies and things that were being outsourced, or it was to look at it was a business. And education should be about what's in a school. Yes, part of it is, making sure you get programs or things that's going to help a student. But when you put $150,000 out for art design or for things for logos, that's not putting in the money where it needs to be. And that's where I started to see it again that last year, where he was in his first year, where it was just marketing, PR, just getting the name out. And I'm thinking, we're the school system of Nelson County. You don't have to get the name out. Everybody knows, and it's public. People come in. That's the school system. That's our school district. But it is amazing where that now is the most important thing. Educating or educators, even the students, are not important anymore.
I think you hit the nail on the head right there.
I'm frustrated. I'm shocked that it is so corporate. I mean, I'm sure there's been things that go underhanded, and we've always, which was probably not the best thing to do, but joke around where there was companies that just seem to always get that lowest bid, no matter who put in, this company or that company, and until you're kind of outside of it, because when you're in education or your school, you're doing your thing. You're doing what you need to do. So you don't really notice things until after the fact, and then it's like, holy cow, now I see why that happened, or now I see why that company. Or we have people now that got out of the school system and now they're working for the company. It's like, no way. It's just disheartening, I guess, that you would sell yourself out or sell your place of employment or sell to your own personal gain. And I guess I'm not that type of person. I don't want to be that type of person, because I got into education to help students, or to at least give myself to the community in some way. But for others, I don't see that. I see it more of, what can I get, or what are you going to do for me if we go to this company or if this happens?
Speak a little, if you can, about teacher morale. Because I know that I've heard you talk at some of these board meetings, and I love the messages that you bring, the business of, again, the teacher turnover rate, and then the blank stares that you receive back from them.
Well,
and then of course, even Wes Bradley himself, he's very good with the excuses, and his excuses are about as bad as they could possibly get, where he says, well, people just leave because they just leave, and everybody leaves for different reasons, and families change and employees change, when in fact his unprofessionalism and his borderline psychopathic nature are the real reason as to why people are leaving.
Mm-hmm.
But talk about teacher morale and what you've gauged regarding teacher morale within that district.
When, again, my last year there, when Mr. Bradley got the superintendency, I guess it was a feeling of not really sure, because since he was principal at the, high school, Thomas Nelson, he was pretty much given everything on a silver platter. So we heard about the jargon and the things that they were doing there, and just how, that was the place for people to go and see. And when he got that, the superintendency, we thought, here we go. We're going to be now Thomas Nelson. No matter what they did, he's going to implement it or try to implement it. So we were going to have to do what he wanted. So it did, little by little, all these little things that, if it could have been implemented, it was going to be. And it was the control of him, the control of, no matter what, that's going to be done. And the morale, then, we have no control over things. We have to do it his way. And it even got lower. I mean, we were told pretty much what to do. We had to show everything that we did on Google Calendar all throughout the day. We had to show where we were, what we were doing, when we were looking at emails, when we were making phone calls. It was the most controlled situation I've ever seen in my education career, where you had to put down where you were at all times, and you had to do these things. Or if not, you either the principal was going to have to talk to you about it, or you knew that you were going to be written up in some way. He had a video every week we had to watch, just different things that pretty much you had no choice but to do. So the morale went down. I got out, thank the Lord. I got to retire, but from what I was told now, it's again, just more and more of that control, of doing what he wants, no questions asked, and you better not ask any questions because then you're on his list. And I've had people to say that he's even had other people to go to the teachers and say, if you're not an ally of Mr. Bradley's, you know what could happen. So for me, I think that's definitely bullying right there, and I ethically as a superintendent or ethically as an educator, those are things that he is going against completely. And that's what I told him at one of the board meetings. Why do that? Why do you use your power for negative reasons for doing that? Nobody needs to do that. I think a teacher, which they've gone through college, they've gotten their masters, they've gotten their bachelors. I think they can think for themselves, shouldn't they? And have a curriculum. They don't even have curriculums. It's just the worst thing I've ever seen, to where he is controlling everything little by little, and these teachers have no power whatsoever. And if they did talk, or if even he gets a whiff of it, you're in trouble. So that's my biggest thing too, is for the teachers. That's not what you're there for, and he shouldn't be able to do that.
Have there ever been any staff surveys or district surveys highlighting any of the, or asking the staff any of these questions about what's been going on in this entire rollout and what they think about it?
No, and I've asked that too, to have a survey for at least our county, but Vanessa did also ask them last board meeting for the students to have a survey. I know one of the parents did a survey of just teachers that were willing to put it out towards at the end of the school year, and it was a pretty good number, a percentage that would not say to be employed. They would not recommend being employed in the Nelson County school system. They would not recommend it.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's not uncommon. And even when and I'm speaking from personal experience here, but even when those surveys go out,
mm-hmm.
and the real results come back, I've had past friends, sit inside of these closed-door meetings with administrators where they're just screaming and yelling at the top of their lungs because of the results that have rolled out, where 75 to 77% of the staff hates what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And only the sycophants are the ones who enjoy it.
And it really, I just can't imagine and that's what I told them, would you want to work in a system or in a place where every single day it was felt that if you did one little thing, then you're not considered his ally, or you're not considered to be on that team, and you're then going to have that finger pointing at you? Would you want to work in that situation? Would you want to work in that environment? And like you said, I get the stares, or I get like this look of like just utter astonishment or shock, and I'm thinking, there's no way. You've got to know. And especially now with 100 staff that have left, and to me too, when this is my home county, so when I was here as a student, you had teachers and staff to stay at schools for 10, 15, 20 years. You had a principal that was there. That was who you said. If you said Principal Snyder, you knew that was Nelson County High School. Nowadays, unfortunately, there's so many. It's just like a revolving wheel. Nobody knows the principals. Nobody knows the assistants. Nobody knows the teachers. And that's sad. I mean, there are some teachers which probably should have gone a long time ago, but there's those teachers that were a staple there for families, that were trusted people in the community, trusted people in that school, and they've gone. My colleagues, and I told them that, my colleagues that I was with for years in Nelson County left. Several with 15 years, 20 years of experience in our county have left for the neighboring school system, and all the better for them. Because when I talked to one of them just this past week, she said, I'm sad in a way because, I had to leave. And I said, oh, I understand. She said it was medical. Her stomach was sick. She felt sick. Just that nervous feeling. And now she said, you would not believe the environment, how friendly, how they welcome, how I don't feel that way. And I just said, good for you, but it's Nelson County's loss. And that's what I told the board. I said, we've got teachers leaving. That's our loss. And again, like you said, the blank stares are just, and he said KDE was wrong, the Kentucky Department of Ed, when all this started and the turnover of 15, 16%. He did a whole presentation on the next board meeting on how KDE was wrong, how our Kentucky Department of Ed and their turnover rate and the percentages. He did a whole presentation on that. And I just looked at the lady next to me. I was just like shaking our head. We all were laughing. Some of the ladies that I've been sitting with, they've retired from the school system too. And they all just looking like, are you kidding me? So if you've got to promote how the education system, above you is wrong, there's something wrong, period. And you're trying to either, sweep stuff under the rug or make it look so that I'm so much better and I am smarter. But that's, again, isn't that something against that person that you've got to promote and do, so much to make it look bad for something else?
I remember that whole board meeting. I watched the whole thing. It was absolutely embarrassing.
Yes. Oh, yes. But there you have it. I'm sure some people, oh, yeah, I'm sure he's right. What? You think he's right? Okay. And that's the problem, too, since he is from this area. I'm sure so many want to believe him. And that's the worst part about it. You've got a person that came here, and I feel that if the merger goes through and all these things, so many other people are going to leave, and he's going to close these small town schools. Small town communities will unfortunately die off. And you're going to have two large campuses in the Bardstown area, which for all the other little areas, we've got to bus those kids 35, 45 minutes every day in the morning and then in the afternoon. And it's going to kill our school system. People will leave. People will go to other places, or they'll go to, which I'm sure they have, the other school systems that are the Catholic schools. And for them, I think their enrollment's gone up too, just because of this.
I believe it.
Yeah.
I fully believe it. And I think it was Vanessa who sent me a document recently that was describing how 10 school districts in Kentucky have signed on with the Kentucky Department of Education to essentially create a separate teacher education program within their K12 districts.
Yes. Grow your own teacher.
That's right. That's right. And Nelson County is one of them. And I personally think, of course, it's pretty obvious. There can't be anything more insidious than that.
Mm-hmm.
Because then all you're doing is you're bringing in people, indoctrinating them, and saying, this is what we do here. If you don't like it, you won't be hired here.
That's right. And that was made, a comment was made when, Vanessa and I were sitting at the board meeting, and that was the title. I said, grow your own teacher. Good Lord. I think, and that's my problem too. People should be able to think for themselves, not push this that you think's right or you think should be put in the classroom. I don't think that's your choice, or it shouldn't be. There should be a curriculum that is given, and with this promoting of these younger people coming in, they have not had experience, and they're just going to go right along with whatever he says or whatever is given to them because they want a job. And since, this is something they're in, they probably feel like they're going to have to. Oh, I need to do this. Oh, okay. Okay. They're just going to go right along with it.
It's very overwhelming. I mean,
it is.
That's putting it mildly. And you touched on it. You touched on a very important part too, which is, again, the psyche of these teachers and the feeling that they have in their stomachs when they're going to work. Eventually, that takes its toll on their medical health.
Yes, it does.
And their complete frame of mind. You have to have a ton of teachers in that district that are suffering from serious anxiety and depression.
Yes. I mean, you can see it in their faces. I mean, it was something where, and it was just so sad to see from the beginning of that year when he came into being the superintendent, all those little things, and it all added up towards the end. And then when my principal was fired, and several that year, about 3 principals that really were in the community. Mine had been in that school for 20-something years. You could see it then, the defeat, that this is the way it's going to be. And if you're not the right fit, you're gone. So people are just so scared. They're walking on eggshells. They want, they don't want not to have a job. So they're doing, and it's a constant battle every single day. And I'm sure, just like you said, that mental toll, because that affects everything, and all day long, every day.
And it has such a negative impact on students as well. And it's not that teachers are taking it out on students per se, but
no,
they can at least see the mood, and the masking of everybody is one of the largest, if not the largest, abusive tactics that's ever taken place within these environments.
Right.
I mean, let me ask you this too, are there any, and I guess I'm kind of leaning toward the mask subject to sort of shift gears slightly, but are there any speech pathologists in that school district, and are any of them speaking out against this mask wearing?
I know 2 that personally they've not commented. Now the other ones I'm not sure, but nobody that I'm aware of has said anything. The thing that's been placed on our Save the Schools just a while ago this week was that the teachers and everybody are going to have the mask. They're going to be given 1 box for just the starter kit, I guess, and then they're going to have to buy the rest of the masks throughout the year. But as far as saying anything about it, no one has said a word, at least not that I'm aware of, about the wearing of a mask. No.
Let me ask you about school nurses, because when I talked with Dr. Angelina Farella on the podcast, who is associated with America's Frontline Doctors, and she has a pediatrician practice, pediatric practice, her own practice in, I believe, Houston, Texas, or somewhere around there. I asked her about I asked her about school nurses, and I said, what is the deal with school nurses? What is going on? Are any of them of sound mind? Are any of them saying that these masks are harmful? Do they know what is in the makeup of the actual mask? Where are these school nurses speaking out and protecting these children from this insanity? And her answer was they're all brainwashed.
Oh, yeah.
She said they're just as brainwashed and as panicked as anybody else over absolutely nothing. Has that been, do you think that's going on there too as well? I mean, it must be.
Oh, I'd say so, because, again, if you work for the Nelson County school system, either as, a teacher, a nurse, anything, if you're told what to do, then you're going to do it. And I'd say, if you said something to a student, which then would say something to a parent, then it's going to go up and up the charts to probably the superintendent, and with them, they don't have the ability to probably say anything different than what they're told. So as a school nurse, I'd say you're just told what to say, what to do, and if not, then we can find another nurse.
It's amazing.
Mm-hmm. It is, and it's the saddest thing I've ever seen, where you have no ability. Well, you do have the ability, but do you want to put yourself out there? Because once they get a whiff and you're not an ally, so to speak, then you're on the list. You're on the list of either somehow, somewhere, it's going to happen to where you're not going to feel like you're going to have a job, or if you don't turn yourself around, you're not going to have a job.
The abusive nature of the mask itself, they're not even thinking about, again, what's in the makeup of the mask.
Right.
And they don't know that there are cancer-causing agents in the mask.
Right.
So even if they were told that, which this information is widely known, they're actually making students wear a carcinogen around their face.
Right.
They're breaking the law.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and you know this too, and I wrote about this in my last book, but it was probably in the first paragraph. If you go back to 2019, and any of this took place in 2019, everybody would be fired.
Sure. Probably, well, to me, I think part of it's media, part of it is, if it is something where it's an overlying, just all around people saying one thing, and there's a few that say the other, most people will go along with the masses. So along that way, since like you said, in 2019, there were probably little snippets about it, but then when it overtook everything in 2020, and now it's where you do see, the few that are trying to let people become educated, be aware of certain things, and that not everything all the time is what it seems. But in the fact of where you need a job, and you're being told, and if you don't comply, you're out, you're going to comply most of the time.
Has anybody discussed mass non-participation in that school district and just walking out and not showing up and seeing what happens?
For the webs or the page that we do have, Save Our Schools, there's been a few posts about the mask and what some other districts or counties have done, in the fact of either saying, or I don't think there's been any to really have a walkout or a protest. So right now I have not heard of anything towards that. Our schools do start this Wednesday for Nelson County, so maybe, in the few days there might be something, but at least for now I have not heard anything about that, no.
So Wednesday is the first day of school?
Yes.
Well, I'm going to tell you something, and this is going to ruffle feathers, but at this point, I could give a damn. The fact is that every single school teacher and employee in that school district needs to not show up to work.
And that's been tossed around. Either have a walkout day or a boycott day or something, but
he can't fire everybody.
Right.
They can't fire everybody. In fact, what it's going to do is it would statewide and nationally wide show what an embarrassment Wes Bradley is, and everybody would be coming for his head instead of coming for teachers.
Right, and that's a good point. That is, it would show the light. It could possibly happen someday. It would be very telling, wouldn't it? Yeah.
It's the only way. It really is. I mean, these people, they just continue to walk right into the slaughterhouse, and they're expecting these totalitarians to just change their ways. Mm-hmm. They're not going to. You can't look at the enemy and ask them for a favor.
Right.
They'll never give you one.
No, that's for sure. That's for sure.
Let me ask you about these radio appearances that I keep listening to, because I've listened to almost all of them now of Wes Bradley.
Have?
Oh,
okay.
It's the worst.
Mm-hmm.
What is wrong with the radio host? I mean, he's I mean, again, I don't know him. I don't know his relation to anybody, but he's clearly not asking any real questions.
Yes.
He's not probing Wes Bradley about anything. He's not saying, "Hey, man, look." There's, I mean, and of course, there's no counter narrative that you ever hear when he's on there. He's just given this platform to just say whatever he wants.
Yeah, and that's such a problem. It's disheartening because you want other people to hear what is going on, but when the person that's in charge of the radio show isn't really probing, like you said, or not really asking the hard questions, then you're really not going to find out what's happening. And that's been frustrating for a lot of us and me that want Nelson County and the other counties to know what's going on. Why do we have 100 staff leaving? Well, why don't you ask them that? Why don't you say, this is what's going on. Parents are worried. Parents have, that the board's heard it. The board has had many letters, and I'm sure he has. The Standard, that's our local paper, and I'm sure he's affiliated in some way with the news. So I don't understand why you're not asking. What would it hurt? You don't have anything to do with the Nelson County system. You should be kind of an impartial party to try to shine a light on these news issues. And definitely with Nelson County Schools being one of the biggest employers in our county, that should, in all, show I've got to find these things out. I've got to hear people, and I've got to ask the questions that may be, not what he wants, but it's important for everybody to know what's going on, and let's ask the hard questions.
I've heard that some outside reporters have tried to get a hold of Wes Bradley, and he's turned all of them down.
That's what I've heard. WHAS, which one is very much a prominent news station in the Louisville area. Yes, Shay McAllister. She has been really getting a lot of people, a lot of interviews, what I've heard, and some information, and still trying to get Mr. Bradley to have an interview, and it's pretty much a no for what I've heard. So, yep, he doesn't want to talk to the big news system, but he'll talk to, Mr. Bradford or other people that's local.
Yeah, the radio appearances are really embarrassing because he's saying nothing, and it's almost as if he's consistently trying to interview for another position.
Oh my!
And he's
go ahead. I just listened to one, and it was like me. It was pulling teeth. It was where it was right in the middle of the merger thing, and you could send in questions. The community could send in questions, and I know Vanessa, she texted to him and said, "Do not change this question because I know what you're doing," or something like that. I started laughing, but yeah, it's hard for me to listen. It really is. So I'm just so frustrated about that. Yeah.
Let me ask you where you think the district is going in the short and the long term, and then go ahead and state some predictions as to what you think is coming down the line here.
Oh dear. Prediction. Well, it would not surprise me if more teachers left to where that grow your own teacher, they'll keep that up because we'll have more teachers with my type of years, 20, 15, something, to leave or try to find someplace else, which I can't blame them. You want to be in a district or in an environment that you feel comfortable in daily. School system, if the merger does happen, middle schoolers will be with the high schoolers. There'll be 2 campuses, unfortunately. The elementaries will be taken, and those small towns will be in trouble. I'm from a small town. I don't want that to happen, but if you take that school away from a town, there's not a lot of, kind of, this is what you're going to get if you come to our town. You won't have that small school, and people may leave. People may, find someplace else. So 2 large campuses that I feel would be impersonal, especially to 6th graders who's just 11 years old, 12 years old. I hate to even think about it, but if that does occur, 2 main campuses for Nelson County schools, K through 12. And I just don't agree with it.
It's a dangerous environment.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And it's pretty evident that given the fact that you don't even have a curriculum and you're just trying things and just doing things and playing along, and again, the work camp mentality of students working multiple hours a day.
Yes.
While they're also supposed to be attending school or not attending school. It's a cult. I mean no disrespect to you having taught there, but it's. I'm sure it was, as even you said, it didn't used to be this way.
No, it didn't. And when we saw people that did conform or were conforming, we said, well, I guess they drank the Kool-Aid, because that's what we felt. You did have your own views at one time, but then either you get moved up and things start, kind of changing for the better for that person. We said, well, they drank the Kool-Aid, and that's the way it goes. So there you have it. Yep.
Do you think schools are going to close in the future?
I hope not, but if you only have, which, would be a K through 5, and for a small community, maybe 200 students, that's what I told the board. Why would you keep a small town school open for just, K through 5 and bus them 13 miles up and 13 miles back, which is my hometown, Boston? It would not be feasible, and they could make those numbers look so good to say, this is draining us, even though that they'll put, $29,000 for blinds for the central office, but let's close the school, and I can see that going for a vote, and there you go. And it will be closed and or become, just another building that's going down and down and down. Slowly.
What are they planning on doing with the empty buildings?
There's a rumor, and unfortunately, how it could be a little bit of the truth. I'm not sure, but for Bloomfield Middle, the rumor is that it would be a rehab facility or a facility where they would be housed there. It's called the Isaiah House on down the road. They've taken one of the older schools, and that was what it has become, and that's the fear for a lot of the people in the Bloomfield area. And the Bloomfield Middle School is right pretty much up from the middle of town, where there's several houses, just right across the road. You've got subdivisions where this school is, and it was built for students to walk to school. Now it would be where within a stone's throw you would have a rehab facility, and they're scared about that.
Clearly.
Yes. And it was just it was 1996, I think, is when it was open. And like I said, that's where I retired from in 2019. So they're going to close that school. And there's been the talk of that. So I've heard they're fighting it, which I'm very glad, and I'm fighting for what I can. But it's just so frustrating that you see all these things that are just laid out, unfortunately, and you kind of see where the road has kind of led to, this little change or that little movement, or this person's in this committee now, or things. And like I said, when you're in something that you're working daily, you're doing your own things, and then when you're out of it, and then when people do kind of give you a little snippet, it's like, holy cow, oh, that's why that happened, or, oh, that's why that person is on that committee now, that kind of thing. And it just makes me sick. It really does. I guess, I'm not that type of person, but there's a lot of people that are. They're willing to do what they have to do for power, for money, for control, and it's sad.
Any tips that you have for the employees of that district? Anything that you can say to them to either boost their morale or wake them up?
Well, I feel that the ones that are still in there, that's been or saw what was coming, they just gotta keep their head up and just try to do the best they can every single day, and hopefully there'll be a light at the tunnel. And for the new ones coming in, it's not that way everywhere. Like I said, being in that school district for 20 years, I've seen what it was and what it could be again. But since he's going to be in there for 4 more years, I just don't know. And I want to try to be as positive as I can, but I don't want our school system to go down any further with either morale, with people leaving, with schools being closed. But when you see all these things, it's so hard to be positive, and especially if you're at that point, you've got 19, 20, 21 years, and you can see, oh Lord, I've got 5, 6 more years. Can I take it? You kind of have to do, because in education, it's not as easy to get out of something than it is another type of job. And I think that's where some people are misled. Well, why don't you leave? Well, it's not that easy, and you don't know if you're going to be tenured, and you don't know if they're going to, want you, because they're going to have to pay you more than they are this newbie that comes in. So, and for those people that are newer, I'd say that they'll probably just go through the motions because it is easier. But, if you don't feel like that's you, try to still be you in some form or fashion of curriculum, or showing students that this is education. It is a school. It shouldn't be about somebody's, their program, which is really not a program. It should be about curriculum and teaching children. I've just been so disappointed in how this has played out, but I'm just going to try to keep going as much as I can through the frustration, through the disappointment, I guess, and just try to ride it out and just do what I think's right.
That's solid advice, and I totally agree with you. I agree with you.
It's hard, though. It's hard.
Yes, it is hard, because we want to hold on to the way that things were. Mm-hmm. And we want to hold on, even as bad as it was back then. Mm-hmm. I mean, the simplicity of it. It could always be just so simple.
Yes.
And yet, complicated and deranged people always make things harder.
Mm-hmm.
And it's as if
you are right.
It's as if people don't just see that it's not just bad policy. It's the people making the bad policy that are the problem.
Yes.
And if we don't get rid of the people, then nothing will ever change.
You're right.
I almost every call that I have with Vanessa, we always sort of end on the same kind of note, and that is that if the school board isn't run out of that town, and if people don't stand up and run against them and win, then you can't expect anything to change, because the first move, once the school board loses and new people, absolute patriots, end up taking over, mm-hmm. Your first order of business is firing Wes Bradley.
Right.
And then you've got to take a complete bulldozer and a wrecking ball to that district office. Mm-hmm. So if that doesn't happen, then nothing. I mean, I hate to sound morbid about the whole thing, but I mean, nothing's going to change. This is going to continue. It's going to continue to turn into a communistic work camp. They're going to graduate with no credentials whatsoever. They're not going to be able. They're not going to be able to use anything that they've done there the entire time. And frankly, Nelson County is going to become a giant embarrassment. And and people won't hire them if they come from Nelson County and their school district. And colleges and universities will say, "Wait a minute, you came from Nelson County. Throw that application in the trash."
I know, you are so right, and it is an embarrassment. It shouldn't be that way. It should not.
I'll tell you what, if at any point and at any time you hear more about what's going on, whether they be rumors or not, or rumblings of either the school closing in the future, because again, that's my prediction, and I've said it publicly, I've said it nationally, I've said it on this podcast, I've written about it. I think it's coming. I think they're going to blame. They're going to blame the unvaxxed as being some spreader of some alleged virus, and in fact, that's not going to be the case at all. It's going to be a lot of the jabbed that are getting sick, and you can't staff a building when you have sick teachers. And I mean, know that too. Of course, having taught, if 10 teachers are gone, finding 10 substitutes is next to impossible.
You are right. Nobody wants to sub. There's so many school districts that we can't find bus drivers. We can't find subs. Heck, we can't even find teachers. So yeah, our school system in just that fact has changed dramatically. Because again, either they don't want to come, they don't want to sub, they don't want to work for a certain school system, or, they could be scared with what's going on. Why be in that type of environment? Why put myself through that? And they're not doing it. So yeah.
Are you familiar with Hillsdale College? Are you familiar with that name?
No, sir. Mm-mm.
Hillsdale College is based out of Michigan.
Okay.
And they are a constitutionally sound conservative college. Mm-hmm. They teach morals, ethics, values, and American history and education and a variety of other subjects, economics, business, you name it. And what they are doing, and I would encourage you to check out their website, and I'll, of course, mention this to all the listeners, everybody who's listening to this, but one of the things that Hillsdale College is doing is they are fully integrated now into the K12 system. Mm-hmm. But they're creating their own K12 schools.
Oh.
And there's an entire map that's on their website, and it shows where their Hillsdale academies exist across the United States, and then different locations where they're popping up. One of the states where they don't have any is Kentucky.
Huh.
And one of the things that I think is interesting is even on their website, they say you can reach out to us and communicate with us about what's going on in your area, and we will consider either building a school or taking an old school that's there, renovating it, and then having a Hillsdale College K-12 school in your local area.
Oh, okay.
Because what's happening is, as you might imagine, is countless people are leaving the public school arena and they're entering more morally sound, American-based, freedom-based private schooling.
Yes.
And I see an opportunity there for Nelson County, because then again, all you would be doing is pulling more and more parents away from West Bradley and that corrupt system.
Right.
And you would give them yet another option on where to potentially go to school. And again, with a vacant building, at least one vacant building coming now, and being turned into a rehab center, I can't help but think that could very easily be a Hillsdale College K-12 academy.
Right.
Where again, it would remain. It at the very least would remain a school, but that's something to take to your, the Chamber of Commerce and your city council, assuming that they're not on board with West Bradley.
Mm-hmm. I don't believe they are. Well, again, who knows? But certain people that are in either politics or in that type of area, they're not for it, not a bit. So,
well, there's certainly other options out there, and I've advocated for homeschooling too.
Yes.
To get people out of these environments, and my take has always been the same: if a student can read, they can teach themselves.
Right. Right. And there's a lot of people that said they're going to homeschool and get them out of the district. And I'm going to try to find out how many have.
Perfect. Well, if you ever hear anything in the future, again, ear to the ground and let me know. You've got got my phone number. You've got my email.
Yes.
Shoot me whatever you'd like. And yeah, let's keep talking in the future.
Sure will. Thank you, Mr. Brooks. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you,
for
Susan.
this opportunity.
You take care. And call me Sean, by the way.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Sean. You have a good one.
You too. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to American Education FM. Make sure and check out AmericanEducationFM.com for more information. Take care and God bless.